Hey, I guess I better join the stream, eh? What's going on, guys? How's it going on this wonderful Friday? We're gonna look at some cool models today. Not for a Plamono trend. Ryan and I will be back for another episode of Plamono Trend, I think next Friday, I think is the plan. So we'll see you guys for that at that time. Here's a little bit, before we get into it, a little bit about what I'm working on here today. So I got my Nutcracker, and I got Surfacer on it, so it's looking all nice and crispy clean before we dirty it up. But on the underside, and I've got the video for this actually coming out later today for anybody that's interested. On the bottom half of this, what actually goes on the underside, I took this cheap like RC car and I popped off the top of that, and it's got the little remote here. It only goes forward and back. That's it. But I thought, oh, this could be kind of interesting. So what I did is just cut a hole in the bottom of that and modify this to fit in there. The problem is it works like this. Same. But when I add the top part on, it's too much like weight or something on it, and I guess it's just not powerful enough to be able to drive as is. So I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make this thing to drive with the top part on it. Because right now, even with this, like it's not like super powerful, but I mean, it can at least it can go back and forth there. It's kind of cool. So I'm working on that. What I'm thinking I might have to do is just get a different car to go in there. Basically, one that has a little more juice. That one was just like a $3 one from Target, from like that front section there at Target where they have like the like $1, $3, and $5 like type of stuff. And yeah, it's just not cutting it. So I'm looking into trying to see if I can find like a little bit larger car with a little more power that should be able to drive that thing. So that's one thing I'm working on. The other thing is I also got some primer on, I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah. Anyway, it's over there behind the camera. I got some primer on the old Gundam and Regalgoo kit bash that I was working on. So everything is all pretty much done. We'll see what the primer reveals, if there's anything that still needs a little bit more cleanup. I think mostly it should be pretty okay. And so after this, I might go put some paint on that kit. We shall see. I haven't really totally decided on the color scheme. I may need to work on finishing out the planning of the color scheme, actually. So maybe I'll just plan to do the painting on Monday, maybe. Over the weekend, I'll plan out the color scheme and everything. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on with me. And now let's get into the topic at hand. So we're going to be taking a look at some works in progress and some finished works from a few of my wonderful, lovely, beautiful Patreon supporters. Thank you so much to everybody there on Patreon. There's different tiers. If you guys are interested, you can sign up. One of the things that you can get as like a reward for signing up on Patreon is that you get access to the Discord. So you can join the Discord there, and then like depending on what tier you want to go for, you can also submit your works for these critique videos that I'm gonna aim to do about once a month. I think I was looking back, and I don't think for November or December, I don't think we did episodes. So behind, and now this one we're squeezing in right at the very end of January. But yeah, November and December were just crazy busy. Just had a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, so as always, I'm just always very thankful and appreciative to everybody there on Patreon. So check it out if you're interested. There's a link down below. The first one we're going to take a look at, and I think, let's see, we have 4 kits to look at today. 2 of the 4 are related to the PokePla contest. So the first one's going to be from Mafuyuyu. They're a work in progress on, let me just put it up on the screen here for you guys. They're a work in progress on their PokePla entry, which is kit bashing this 30-minute sister kit with this Arceus kit. I think that's Arceus, right? I believe so. And that Snickers bar in the background looks very delicious. I've talked about this before. I've mentioned this that not this past, not like New Year's like a month ago, but the New Year's before that, my New Year's resolution was to try to eat as little as possible of like chocolate, candy, cookies, and donuts. I don't stick to that perfectly, but I like very minimally. Yeah, you're right on time. So anyway, I don't really hardly ever have Snickers, but I love Snickers. So that looks really good there in the background. And I see there's some minis and stuff, some other cool stuff. But anyway, yeah, so this is the PokePla Arceus kit that he is kit bashing. Now, since you're here in the chat, well, it might say in the email here. Eufina is I was trying to remember the name of the 30-Minute Sisters kit here. Eufina. I've actually not built this one yet. It looks cool though, so I'm looking forward to building that one. And so let's see. It's a kit bash using those two kits. Overall, just some basic kit bashing, cutting, sawing, gluing, puttying, and a lot of sanding. Yes, fun stuff. I've tried to make the hooves of the Arceus into some sort of crazy high heel. I haven't started painting yet, but here's some basic putty shots. Okay, that was actually part 4 of the email. I'm just going to go through, make sure I have all the info from the emails here. But I think that's it. Yeah, okay. So this is like the base kit, and then we saw here's like the Arceus base kit. So basically just kind of what they're wanting to do is basically try to blend, elements of both, or more so just kind of like blending elements of the Arceus kit onto the Eufina. Is that right? Like I said, I'm not built that. Yeah, Eufina. That's right. Okay. Yeah. So for the feet, and we can just kind of take this just kind of in parts. And I really like this idea of, I mean, you mentioned that I'm trying to make it look like kind of like high heels, but I think like high heels or not, basically, I mean, what you want to go for is just having feet. Where is it? I'm going to move this photo here so it's easier to get to. Basically, like these type of feet, like these Arceus feet, adapting them onto the 30-Minute Sisters, and I think it looks nice. I think that's a really good way to go about that. I mean, it looks like fairly simple, right? Because this part, basically, kind of like from the knee down, it's just like that section, that lower section of the leg, kind of just fits right perfectly onto the leg of the 30-Minute Sister kit, like a boot, basically. And it doesn't exactly at the top, like if you just see like this top half here, it just looks like kind of a natural transition of like as if she would be just wearing like a boot. And then this bottom part, he has a little extreme, like obviously the foot's not going to be in there like that, or maybe it is, but she's obviously not going to be like standing on that, which I think is fine. I mean, it's like a fictional thing, and you're probably going to have it posed on a base or something anyway, unless you want to add like a heel to the back, which I wouldn't. I would just stick with it like that. I think it looks good. So no, I think that part works perfectly well. For some of the other parts here, you have like this side, a little kind of fin here on the side of the leg too. It looks like that you kind of added on to the side of the leg. That also works well too, and especially because like you can add. I'm not sure. Yeah, that yellow part has a hard point on it, so you can basically just make that into a thing you can just kind of like peg onto the side there. As it is, like this is just work in progress. Let's see. Can we see that more in another photo? Yeah, so what I would recommend with that, because it looks like that part's maybe not quite finished yet. So what you want it to do is either be like completely blended in, where it's like a smooth transition from like the spike to the leg. But because the leg is like in sections there, I would not really worry too much about trying to like blend it in smoothly, because then once you go to paint it, then like what are you going to do? You have to like either like do like a panel line around that part or something. It's going to be kind of like a weird transition in terms of like how you're going to try to paint it, unless you're going to paint it all one color maybe. But I think what would be much easier and would work perfectly well would be to make it intentionally look like that fin on the side is a separate part. So in that way, leave not like a big gap, but don't make it look like it's like stuck on there, but look like it's an actual kind of like how you have it up here too. Um, so like not have the edge right here, not have it being like perfectly like sharp, but kind of beveled just slightly so that it looks like it's like a piece of an equipment kind of on the side of there rather than like an extension of the body. It's like on the, where is it? On the Arceus kit, I mean, it's an actual like part of the arm, shoulder part of it's actually kind of flowing out right there. But on this kit, we want to just make it look like it's basically just a piece of equipment, just like a little thin kind of equipment, sort of. So yeah, it looks like that's kind of maybe what you're going for with this, and that's what I would do too. So I think that's good. Trying to make it look like completely blended in like this, I think. I mean, it's possible, but I mean that's like going in like a different way than I think maybe what you want to do for this. So then the other elements that looks like that we're bringing over from this kit is also the kind of cone head, the tail, and then this kind of like ring around the outside. And so for the ring, you can see how basically this is kind of like attached to the body. It's like right in the middle of the torso, basically, I think, right? As I'm familiar with this kit, with the Pokemon design. So basically, it needs to be separated and to be its own thing. So you just got the putty here, basically to putty over the connections where it wouldn't be like a full kind of round ring. So I think that looks good. And it looks like rather than this blue peg, I think I saw in the later photos you opted to go for a clear peg. I think that was a good choice. I think that clear peg is going to look nice later when it's finished, just to make it look like even more so like this is just like a separate thing, like just kind of floating behind the character sort of. And to that end, I think it would look really good too in like a really nice bright gold, you know, with originally, I guess it is probably supposed to be gold-ish, even though like here on the kit it's just like a kind of yellowish kind of color. Gold would look nice, I think, probably. So I think that'll look good. And then for the head, this part here, I think this is the head, right? There's the head and the tail look similar, so I'm like wonder if I'm getting confused. So you opted to like really minimize the tail on here, which I think also like kind of works fine too. Doesn't, I think like a really long tail maybe would have looked a bit weird. I think we still get the idea that there's a tail there kind of carried over from the original design, but you don't need like this big huge thing on there maybe necessarily. Or is that what's on the head? I now say I'm just not familiar enough with the Arceus kit. It's just a part of the sandwich between the two parts of the body. Yeah. That tail is what you put on the head, isn't it? Okay. I think so. I think that's what we're looking at here. Anyway, so just kind of swapped there, sort of. And then like these fins on the side of the head. The head is on the head. The tip of the... Oh, okay. So it is the head. Just from this one photo here. I'm not familiar enough with how this kit looks other than just what I can see right here. So, all right. So that is the part of the head just kind of cut off. And then the fins are cut off on the side and adapted onto there. So this is just using this is just black glue. If any of you guys are wondering what the black stuff is, and so those are just kind of, so for the sides of the hair, you just kind of have to like grind down like spaces for that, and then this part here for like the chin strap sort of that the Arceus has right there. So I think that also looks pretty good. Are you going to change anything on the face or leave the face as it is? I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to try to like make the face gray or something. I wouldn't do that, but maybe adding like some like, and also I don't know where the mouth is supposed to be. Is this line the mouth, or is this the mouth down here between the gray and the white? I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, it almost looks like sort of like this line between the green circles is the mouth. And now I'm seeing it in a totally different way. And like these green circles under the eyes are like kind of like the cheeks on like the side of the mouth kind of thing. I don't know. But I think it might look kind of cool to just add some green circles here on the face, just like right under the corner of the eyes, basically right where kind of like uh, like the flushing cheeks are. That's the mouth between the green circles. Oh, okay, so it is. Yeah, that looks kind of weird now. I'm seeing this like in a different way. That's how it eats burgers. All right, fair enough. But anyway, I think it might look kind of cool here on the side of the cheek, like just under the corner of the eyes, to add green circles there. Otherwise, leave the face just as it is, because otherwise I think it makes it look too inhuman. You still want to have like some like human quality look to it, but adding those green circles could be a cool little kind of small thing to carry over from the RCS kit. And yeah, I think this is a good amount of blending of the head. Some people will try to add in, or just try to like basically turn the head of whatever they're kit bashing, whether it be like a Gundam kit or a PokePla kit or whatever. They'll just like try to turn this whole top of the head into basically like a helmet on the top of the girl's head. And I don't think you need to do that. I think the fins on the side and the kind of head tail is enough to convey perfectly well kind of what this is supposed to be. And the, like I said, the chin strap there at the bottom too. So I think that looks good. I don't remember the rules. So is the PokePla limited to using Bandai kits? So for PokePla, I mean, I don't know any other Pokemon model kits that aren't Bandai, unless you were using like some like kind of 3D printed thing. But yeah, Bandai kits was part of the rule. Yes, Bandai's Pokemon model kits. Other than that, let's see. So yeah, the tail, like I said, I do like the minimized tail. I think it maybe could have been like slightly longer, but anyway, generally I think that looks good, having it just kind of much smaller than what it is on the original RCS kit, because that would have looked kind of a bit weird. And then also, like, how would you attach it? It would have been like a lot more puttying. Where's the back image? Here we go. Well, yeah, because like it's got like, it's like a big, thick, round tail attached onto like the back of this little booty part. It like wouldn't kind of fit on there quite right. It'd be a lot more puttying and masking, and or not putting masking, but like just a lot more puttying and stuff to like try to blend that into the part. So I think opting for like the small tail works. I mean, PokePla plus maybe Kodo mechanism. I mean, yeah, whatever else, other first name, last name, to answer your question. I mean, whatever else you wanted to use aside from the main like Pokemon model kit it was totally up to you. So like in this case, is absolutely fine, and this is exactly what I expect. What I expected, we would have multiple entries along these lines, kit bashing with 30-minute missions, 30-minute sisters, or 30-minute missions, or whatever else. So this is kind of pretty much exactly what I was expecting to see in this contest. Other than that, I think yeah. So all the different modifications so far, I think, are looking good. This just being, I think, I would assume this is just kind of temporary, because this is actually the stand. And so like, because you used the feet from the RCS kit, the feet will fit into the stand as they were meant to. Although I wouldn't necessarily limit myself to that, just because then you're going to be very limited in the pose, and you're just kind of stuck in this just kind of sort of awkwardly standing pose here like this. So it's nice to have the Pokeball kind of motif there for the stand, but if you really want that, I would say to just use just a different stand. Just use like a woodblock stand, whatever, something like one of these, or like what I've got here for my Masking Ball, and just using like Pla plate or something real simple to just make a Pokeball shape, and can paint that and have that on the base, and then have the kit elevated a bit more on just a clear rod or a brass rod or something. That way you can actually get it into a more interesting pose, I think. What's your thought on the length of the clear rod? I feel it's a bit long on the back. I think it looks okay. A bit long. You could bring it in a bit more. Yeah, I suppose so. It didn't immediately strike me as looking too long, but because it also depends on the angle you're looking at it from. Because if you look at it from the front, it doesn't, it just looks like it's right behind the character. It's kind of hard to maybe seeing it in like a three-dimensional, like if I was looking at it in person, I might be able to tell like how far away it is. I mean, just by the photos, it looks fine like that. From the side, yeah, it's maybe a bit far. I think you could cut that down like half a centimeter maybe. We'll just, yeah, cut it down a little bit, see how it looks. If you think it needs a bit more, then just cut it some more. It's a lot easier to just cut a bit more than have to then cut too much and you realize it's too short, and you have to cut a whole new piece of rod for that. So yeah, try it a bit closer. Sure. I'll use a normal Figma style base. Just have it to hold up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I do like the idea of using a Pokeball on the base in some way. So, like I said, I think it'd be a super easy thing to make just out of plot plate, just to make a really simple Pokeball shape. Or, I mean, you could get fancy with it and make some other different Pokeball. I'm not sure what a good Pokeball, like a Master Ball or something, whether good Pokeball design might kind of match well with the Arceus. Maybe if you had like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not hip enough with Pokemon stuff to be able to know. I know there's like a luxury ball and nest ball, dusk ball, stuff like this. So love ball, I don't know, depending on how you want to paint the kit and everything. It's something to think about. A Pokeball on the base, I think, could be a good idea, and it would be easy to do. So anyway, seeing as how today is the deadline, I'm guessing that maybe we're not going to see this for the deadline. Ultra Ball matches the color. That's true. That would be a good match, I think. I'm guessing we're maybe not going to see this in time for the deadline for the contest, which is fine. But looking forward to seeing this finish. So maybe in next month's episode, this will be finished for us, and we can take a look at it at that time. I would hope so, unless there is a lot more progress on this than what you've submitted in the photos. But I think that just about covers it. So yeah, I think it's looking like really good so far. Still masking, okay. Understandably, a project based on like what you're trying to do here, there's a lot of just puttying and sanding and stuff to do, which takes time. So I understand. All right, thank you. Let's take a look at well, since we're on the topic of PokePla, let's take a look at Ryan's entry here. Not Ryan Lau, but a different Ryan. And put this up on the screen. So this is his PokePla entry that he's working on. We do actually have this actually finished, so we can take a look at some finished photos, and there's some work in progress photos as well. Let me just refer back to the email real quick. I don't think there was any other like pertinent information. Yeah, basically, we can see here. What about reusing the back skirt armor to add with that disc on the back? It's not a bad idea. Okay, so basically, it looks like what he did was take the PokePla Quick Bulbasaur kit and turn it into Ivysaur by, first of all, using some clay to sculpt the budding flower on the back. And then I'm not familiar enough with there's not an Ivysaur kit, right? No, I don't think so. It's just a Bulbasaur. Let me see. PokePla Quick Bulbasaur. Yeah, okay. I just didn't remember for sure if it has the dark green spots on it, but yeah, it does for sure. Okay. Aside from the back, I don't know what's really different about the Ivysaur. Okay, so he's just got like the flower on the back and then has the addition of the little teeth sticking out. It's kind of what makes Bulbasaur and Ivysaur different. The color is slightly different as well. It's a bit more bluish. Okay. Just trying to jog my memory as to how like an Ivysaur is supposed to look. And so, yeah, it definitely has that little bit more bluish color to it for sure. So you can see even from the base model kit is much more like a greenish teal. And then the color it's painted in is much more blue. And yeah, the matching of the new backpacks, as it were, for this. Looks nice, and just the painting, he's got the teeth added in there as well. The teeth, let's try and look in different photos. The teeth do look a bit kind of tacked on, like they're just like triangle pieces of flat plate just kind of glued on there. I think what could have worked nicely for this would be to actually use a scribing tool. And what you would want to use probably is like a circular scribing tool. I have some, but I had a few of them, and I only have. There's two more that I know I have. They're somewhere. They're in a box somewhere or something. I can't find them. I haven't been able to find them since I moved stuff around. I think I was probably using them for a project and put them in the box with the project and then packed that project away. And so it's probably in one of these work in progress ones. But just kind of an interesting tool that I think would have worked well for this. But I just want to show it to you guys too, because I don't often get a chance to show this off to you guys. So I don't use them very often, but they are really nice. Here, this one. So this is from Wave. It's a circular shaped scriber. So it's got this like back end threaded, and then this part here you can unscrew. And so this cap basically works to protect the end. And this is actually a flat one. Oh, this is a flat end one, but I do have ones that are like circular tip, and you can get them in different sizes. But the cool thing is that this part then, if you just turn it around the other way, it goes back on and acts as your handle there, like that. Or if you want like weight at the back end, you can just screw it onto the back end of there and then use it like that. So they're like really cool, really nice scribers. I like these a lot, but I don't often have too much opportunity to use them. I forgot that this was a flat tip one. It's the round ones. But anyway, so they make round ones, round chisels that would work really well for this, because basically, oh, sorry, you guys, I'll put it on the screen. Well, we want to do not that layout, like that. There we go. Basically, to make the tooth, because the tooth is kind of like a rounded little detail there. It's like triangular in shape, but it's still gonna be rounded. So that circular chisel would work really well to kind of chisel that up, just to chisel like out around a little shape, just where you can then like stick that tooth in, so it looks more kind of like it's actually coming out of the mouth, rather than kind of how it ends up looking a bit kind of, like I said, a bit tacked on there. So there's that. And then for the flower, because this is made out of clay, I mean, you're able to make it exactly how you want, and I think it does look nice, but it does still have that look that it's like cut out of clay, just because like it has like the edges. It's still like thick. So I think what would have looked nice would be to smooth the edges so that they come to a point, rather than being flat along the edges of the leaf. Because if you think about how like a leaf looks, right, it's not like flat along the edge typically like that. So I think either making it like that, basically kind of like while it's in this stage like this, trying to I don't know what other word to use other than flatten, but flatten the edges of the leaf, so that looks more like the edge is all like to a point, more than having this ridge around the outside, if that makes sense. Where like you can see the thickness of it. So anyway, either done like at this stage while the clay was still like malleable, and like using a tool or something to flatten that out, or later on, once the clay is dry. I don't know like this type of clay exactly like how, but I'm sure you could just use a file or sandpaper or whatever just to sand that down, just to make that thinner around the edges, so it looks a bit more like a natural leaf. Otherwise, I think like the general shape of it looks fine as it is and everything. It's just the edges having that thickness to them that looks a bit unnatural as a leaf. I was pretty nervous sanding the leaves after they were baked. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. You can tell us. This is the first time working with clay. I don't know, but yeah, I don't often work with clay and plastic models, so it would be kind of a new thing for myself too to try out. But when you try, these new things, you got to kind of take some chances that kind of goes along with it. So anyway, otherwise, I think it's a cool concept. And just like there's a couple of things, like I said, with the teeth and the leaves that the execution maybe could have been done like a little bit more, not smoothly, but a bit more refined. Some of those details, just would have taken some more work. But otherwise, I think too with this one, it might be nice to see it on some sort of base. I mean, when you have like small, like very contained model kits like this, where it's just like your one like little subject, it's nice to have them on some kind of base too. So something to think about. Now for like post contest, now it's just a way for you to display the kit. Like I've got this little block here. I went and got a bunch of these. This is from the Dollar Tree, so it's meant to be just a little wood tray to keep stuff in, but would be a perfect little display base for your Ivysaur kit, I think, something like that. And you could paint and stain this or whatever. You could again, you could add like a Pokeball to the top, just cut some plot plate and paint it, glue it on there. So I think a base would look nice for this. So first time working with Sculpey, yeah, I understand. There's a learning curve. Next time you use it, I'm sure it will be even better for sure. But I like how like the colors are nice, like solid, like vibrant colors too. I'm gonna imagine this was hand painted with acrylic paints. Maybe it looks like. So that looks nice. It's very fitting, like to Pokemon. It's not like super like realistic, like in the coloring. Like if this were like a mini, like if you look at like mini like Warhammer and stuff like that, how they try to paint like really like super realistically. But I think how this looks, it looks like a model kit basically, which I think is not a bad thing at all. If you're trying to make it look like, if you're trying to imagine like, okay, we have Bandai's PokePla quick model kit of Bulbasaur. What if they made a PokePla quick version of Ivysaur? How would that look? And I think it kind of works like that. The painting style makes it look like a model kit, so which is fine. Anyway, yeah, so it looks good. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. Again, just if you're just trying to make it look like Ivysaur, I mean, just looking at kind of some different images of Ivysaur here, maybe some other a bit more like color variants in the leaves, maybe could look nice, like a bit rather than being like one solid green, but maybe like a mix of some lighter and darker greens too. But yeah, just kind of depending on the artwork that you're kind of going off of, it kind of looks different. In some of the artwork, it's just solid green, and some of the artwork it's mixed. Adding some vines to make it look like it's doing like a vine whip or something like that also could have been something kind of cool too. For that, you could basically just use a mix of like wire and then clay, or even just like, I don't know, wire and like plot plate or something. I don't know, depending on kind of how you wanted to do it. But just looking at some different images, Ivysaur images here, just trying to get some ideas. I think that also could have looked cool, and it's something like honestly you could still add that in now at this point. I think basically you could just somewhere like right up in here or something, just drill a little hole for adding in some vines in there. I think could look cool. Use the 3D model as my inspiration. It has a base paired with my mom's kit. Sent a photo on Discord. Oh, okay. I'll take a look at it. I don't know if I can look at it right now, but anyway, I think it looks nice. Let's see. Let's check the photo. Huh? Where should I look for this? It's in the contest. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I see it on the base there. Okay. So just so you guys can see this too, briefly anyway, here's how that looks on the base there with the Pikachu kit. And Pikachu is wearing like a sweater. That's cool. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Thank you very much, Ryan, for that. So we've seen our 2 PokePla entries, and I've never been in one of these streams. Jebby, what's going on? I'm just taking a look at some works in progress and or finished works from some Patreon supporters. So that's what we're looking at here. Next up, we're going to look at some Gunpla here. This one is from Joel. And we've got an Efreet, which I love. Let me put this on screen for you guys. I'll check his email. So this is from, what was this from? Code Fairy. So Code Fairy is what? It's like a Gundam side story. What is it exactly? I don't know. Is it a manga? Code Fairy. It's a 2021 video game for PlayStation 4. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know much of anything about it at all. What other like kind of mobile suits are in there? So anyway, this is a HG Efreet, which is modeled after the mobile suit. But what is that mobile suit in the game though? It's like a Zaku, right? It's some sort of Zaku. Okay. I don't know. Or no, there is an Efreet, or what is that? Just looking at some images. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with it, but okay. The Titania, which is looks sort of more like a camphor. Sort of like a mix between a camphor and an Efreet, sort of. Anyway, interesting design. And so that was the inspiration for this one. Anyway, okay, where are we? It's where the Pale Rider and stuff are from. Is that Code Fairy? That's a different, isn't that something different? Anyway, so that's inspiration for this anyway. So taking a look at this, some interesting stuff here. Titania is a camphor variant. Okay, yeah, that makes sense looking at that. But so that's where like the general like color scheme and everything, for example, for this is going to come from. But I'm very curious to see some work in progress images on this because I'm just wondering about like where some of these parts and stuff come from. Because this is not like the rifle, for example, and this knee part. Is that custom made? This is not a kit, is it? Did I like just miss the fact that there was a yeah, there's no like kit of this, but what kit is okay? Yeah, it's the Efreet Jager. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. So okay, yes, this is the Efreet Jager. Right. Okay. So there is a kit of this. I don't know when did this come out? I sort of vaguely remember seeing this and then like completely forgot about it apparently. So all right. So okay, that does explain where I was just trying to get like a frame of reference as to what's stock in this kit and what isn't. So yeah, like the knee part is part of the original kit. This rifle is also part of the kit. And the other thing I was wondering about was the grenades on the back too. The grenades are also part of the original kit. And it looks like, let's see. Just want to see the back side. I'm not sure about the fuel tanks. Trying to find a good site here. Here we go. All right. So yeah, the original one does not have any fuel tanks there at all, right? Okay. I remember when Bandai said Camphor can't use beam weapons. 2 years ago, I have the kit. Okay, so it came out 2 years ago. Right. All right. Anyway, I don't know. I love the HG Efreet, so kind of tempted to check this one out. And it looks like the original kit, the base kit, did not have a antenna on the head, so that's added. And then all the fuel tanks are also added because if I mean, these ones attached onto the leg and the side of the hips, I was very sure that those are custom added. But what I was not quite as sure about was the ones on the backpack. But those are also added in there, custom ones there as well. So I'm not exactly sure where all those fuel tank parts are from. I will say that I have done this before, adding fuel tanks exactly in this way, using just basically like a peg with a simple joint on it, like that. And I wasn't really that happy with kind of how it ultimately looked. Like, it worked fine. I'm talking like this was like 15 years ago, maybe. It was on like a custom build. Let's see if I can't find it real quick, and I'll show you guys exactly what I mean. Gundam. It was on like my custom build of the Gundam 04 and the Gundam 05. Yep, here we go. We might have some photos of it right here. All right, so we're gonna go. Let me just show you guys what I mean, because I want to show you what I did, which is very similar. So this was on the Gundam 04 and 05 from way back in the day. This was like my first time like customizing models, and basically all I did with these was just add a bunch of option parts onto there, as you can see. So just basically glued a bunch of Kotobuki option parts around on different spots to add detail, like these hook parts on there and these like armor panels and everything. So yeah, nothing fancy. But I'm pretty sure it was this kit. The other thing that I did was adding fuel tanks on the backpack. Yeah, right here. So you can see pretty much exactly the same way. We're using probably what is exactly the same parts too, because it's just like a round joint part that has a peg on each end, and you can kind of adjust the angle of those. I mean, I was happy enough with this at the time, but like looking back on it, and like even at the time, I kind of didn't really like how this just ends up looking a bit just tacked on there. It needs something more like substantial, that it looks like it's actually like a part of the machine and not just kind of plugged into the backpack, just kind of by a random hole there, basically. So I wasn't really too happy with how that looks, just kind of a bit too tacked on there. Let me see if I can, is there another photo, like a finished photo, just to kind of see how that ultimately looked on the back. Here you can see it again there, like that. So it like works well enough. I think like the placement of them on what I did here, I mean, like it makes sense basically. But it's not the most like cohesive look there for if you want to add fuel tanks onto the back there like that. And just they don't really mesh with the design. They don't really match the design all that well. So anyway, the reason why I bring up my own example of that is because I do kind of feel a bit the same way about these. I don't really feel like they look a bit tacked on, and they don't really seem to fit the design all that well. The fuel tanks anyway. I think from the front, they're not very noticeable. And these ones on the side of the leg are kind of interesting, just with them being like shorter and very like confined to the length of the leg there. The ones on the back, I mean, perhaps also if like some details were added onto them, like you just wrap some tape around there and just do like a quick, some like pentaline scribing, just some rings, a couple of rings around there just to add some detail, just so they're not just like a solid piece like that, looking like kind of like a baseball bat there. So the decals are there. So that adds to help to add a little bit of detail, but some pentaline scribing on those I think also could maybe helped. And not having them at like this max length, I think having them all shorter, or even like had they been all like the same size as this small one. Imagine if it just had 6 of these small tanks like this of the same size, like here, here, and here. It could have made it look sort of like, okay, these are these additional kind of fuel tanks that are stored on there and disposable and meant to look like they're like once they're used, they just kind of pop off. They're just ejected from the mobile suit. I think that that maybe could have worked. But I mean, that's kind of the only thing that like immediately jumps out at me, other than the color. I mean, like I find the color scheme to be a bit obnoxious, just personally. But that's that's the color of the mobile suit. So I understand. It's not to my personal taste, let's say that for the Efreet. But I think anyway, like the painting looks fine. He mentioned in the email too that some of the decals look a bit more like you can see the edges, you can see a bit of like silvering on some of the decals, more so than what's like visible IRL in real life. But that happens a lot. That happens all the time to me too. Like I'll take a photo, I'll have like my kit that I'm working on, and I've been working on this thing, putting on the panel lining and the decals and everything else, weathering, and so like I've been like handling it and examining it intimately for hours and hours, and like I go to take a photo and I see something that I didn't see before. It's just because like once you have it in good lighting and you take a photo of it, the camera like will pick up stuff that's just like you just didn't notice with the naked eye. So yeah, that happens all the time. Sometimes it's good because then if you're taking photos along the way, that can help you to find stuff that you might want to fix kind of before you're like really done with the kit. So it's a good idea to take some nice work in progress photos as you're working, because you might find other stuff that you need to fix along the way. But I mean, just as far as like the painting goes, just the application of the paint and everything all looks good. It's just that I don't really particularly care for the colors, especially like the bright red as an accent with the lavender and white. I think the lavender and white on its own looks kind of interesting. And then with some red decals, I think this one on the leg's kind of big, but like these like little bits of red decal up here like that, I think is fine. But again, that's not necessarily like a criticism of the color choices here from Joel, but more so just the original design, because that's just how the design is, right? I believe so. Or I guess no. The original one doesn't have that much red on it, does it? Actually, it doesn't have any at all. But let's see. Where'd it go? The Zaku had some red on it. Okay, so they have this this Efreet does not, but the Titania did, and the Zaku did. So that's interesting. Oh yeah, so anyway, so then I guess to mention a bit about the red, then I mean it's such a bright red that even looking at it, so like looking at the pictures of like the Titania and the Zaku, whatever the Zaku is called, I'm not sure exactly. Still, it's like a very jarring bright red color there against the just lavender and white with the rest of the design. Looking at it in like some of the photos that I'm just looking at here, just online, just from Googling it, the colors are also a bit more desaturated. So maybe like not quite so bright of a red as this. It's like really like almost fluorescent red. So a bit more like kind of desaturated red, I think maybe would have looked nice. I mean, like it kind of looks kind of like this image though here, like with like these red details and stuff. So I don't know. I'm kind of like torn on my opinion in there on the red. I think it is a bit bright though. It's like especially looking at like the red spikes, it just looks really weird having these like really super bright red spikes looking like they're coming out of the shoulder there. I just don't know how I feel about it. Otherwise, it's cool. And I do like the lens part here used for the lens in the scope on the rifle. That looks cool. This kind of orangish color used for the rifle, I'm assuming that's made to make it look a bit sort of like wood, like an AK kind of thing. Also looks kind of cool. Is there another image that we have here? I guess this is like we got this one here too. I was looking for like a nice just full image. And the decals, also are nice. Is the shoulder armor supposed to be like way up like that on the side? Is that kind of how it is? No, it's not necessarily. So this shoulder armor here, it's kind of meant to be more down. I don't know if maybe just like when you were setting it up for a photo to pose it, you just forgot to like push that back down, or if you're wanting it to be like that. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I totally forgot about the release of this kit. I don't know what I was doing at the time, but uh yeah, otherwise, let's see. Not really too much else I can say about it. With these red decals, like here on the back of the head and here on the legs, just personally not a huge fan of those kind of decals, because one of the things is that, so those, if you guys are not familiar, those are decals from a set that are not made for this kit. They're just like kind of these generic decals of this style that you can get, and then you just kind of have to figure out a way to make them kind of fit to your designs. So they don't always fit, and in this case, they're also quite large. I think, like, comparatively to the size of the mobile suit, like this size of decal on like a 1/100 scale kit wouldn't look quite as big, and I think would be a bit more fitting on an HG kit. They look a bit like kind of oversized, and they're, especially like looking at the kit from the front. Where's that other image one I was looking for? Is it gone? What the? Where's that? Oh, maybe it was this one. Anyway, well, like looking at the kit from this way, like you got your little bits of red, which are actually parts of the kit, and then this big bit of red here, which is not an actual part of the kit, but it's a decal. So it's like a bit odd that you have like this really bright red for actual like physical parts, like these bolts, this little part right here where the fuel tank is connected, this little vent right here. And then you have other bits of red, which look to be almost exactly the same color of red for these big, like stripe kind of pattern decals on there. It's a bit distracting, I think, having those for the decals. So I maybe would have opted to leave, like, if you're gonna have like red as an accent, have it either like for the decals or for the parts. Having both, I think, is a bit much on there. The two main colors have a touch of a cool hue, so the red and orange feels dark. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the white is a pretty neutral, like off-white kind of color there, and then the lavender, of course, is going to have a kind of cool feel to it. So and then the gray as well. The gray is quite cool to neutral. Like if we just look at a section here without any red at all right there, and you can see overall it's pretty cool. We have like kind of neutral white, neutral gray, and then your purple, which looks a bit warm, I think, just because of the lighting. Obviously purple is going to be naturally kind of cooler in tone with this lavender color there. So yeah, I don't know what like the best way would have been maybe to adjust the colors. I think it's just a bit like one too many bits of red accent on there, and the red is just one too many shades of brightness to it, I would say. Anyway, that's, I think, all I have to say about that. Otherwise, cool kit, nice details. As far as like the decal placement and everything, I think all looks pretty good. I like where all like the big logo decals are placed. You got the cool like military style like lady one there on the one side. It's almost like maybe one too many. Maybe I would say like when it comes to like these large marking decals. So you have like all your small caution decals and stuff. One thing that's throwing me, the yellow rank on the arm isn't the same rank as on the shoulder pauldron, is it? Oh, this one here? Oh, yeah. So this one right here, I think it's talking about, yeah, this is a rank marking. And yeah, it's different from what's on the shoulder. Where is it? On this side here. I don't know which one's which. It's like lieutenant or whatever. Anyway, something. This one and this one don't match. Yeah, so that just kind of goes to my point, what I was going to say. When it comes to like these larger like marking decals like these ones for like the rank. This one here, this you have like the club up there, and what else? Got like the number, just kind of like a medium-sized one, and another number here. Like thinking about it realistically, this kind of all makes sense. Like basically everything that we can see in this photo would be like the extent of what like realistically would be on there. Like you would want, when seeing the suit, like you would want to have maybe the club is kind of like just a marking for that particular unit. Um, and also, and then on this shoulder here, you have the rank of this particular pilot. And then like this lady here is maybe, again, for this particular pilot. You have the suit number there with the 31. So that's kind of all like things that make sense on the design. But if we look here, you have the 31 again here in yellow and again here. So you have it on both legs and on the front skirt. And is it anywhere else on the front? Anywhere on the back? I thought I saw it somewhere on the back too. Maybe not. But that lady bit there. Oh yeah, it is on the back of the leg, right? It's here. So it's on the front of the knee, the front of the leg, the back of the leg, the front of the skirt. It's like more than what would realistically would be on there. So these are like kind of what I kind of think about when I'm doing like custom decals. I try to think of like for like these large marking decals, you want to have like probably 2 or 3 realistically before it gets to be kind of too much of like the larger marking decals. In this case, we've got like quite a few. And typically you're not going to have a lot of stuff like realistic. Again, just like trying to think about it realistically. You're not typically going to have a lot of like large markings on the back side. Probably. But anyway, I think it looks best to try to stick to a kind of less is more policy on like the really large decals, where it kind of makes sense, where like here on the shoulder you probably have like some large marking here, maybe this one on the other shoulder kind of makes sense because you do have a big wide open space there. And then for like the front skirts and the legs, I would stick to just kind of regular caution markings on there. The 31 maybe right there. And I do like like each one on their own, the placement is fine. It's just that taken as a whole, it is a bit like a few too many, I think. Like here, the placement of that here on the knee is fine. It looks good. The kill markings over here too. I think that's like a logical position for that marking and everything. It fits that space. So the issue is because like with taking a look at like people's different like custom builds and stuff, one of the issues that some people have too is that they try to fit decals in where it's not really the proper space for it. And I think the spacing of all the decals makes sense and works fine. It's like they might try to fit like this big decal here onto like the side of the knee here or something like that, and it just kind of doesn't really fit the space well. So I mean, just in terms of like the decal placement and everything, I think everything where you chose to put everything, I think fits the space for it well. There's also like a lot of colors going on with the decals, and so like depending on what you like the look that you're going for, because if you look at like some of like the older style like 80s kits and like that kind of retro kind of styling, you'll see like the decals are in like red, white, blue, black. They're in all these different colors, and that's just kind of part of the style of those like retro decals, like real type decals. If you're looking at like a kit, like this is a perfect example, like the Zaku cannon here. There we go. So like one of these type of kits here, if you're looking at the decal sheet, you've got there's some yellow and you got some red, white, blue, black, a lot of colorful stuff, but that is like well suited for like a certain aesthetic. And like the paint kind of needs to match the aesthetic, and especially the paint color is kind of you have to go for like kind of like a retro kind of color scheme. In this case, you have like a very like modern kind of color scheme and very modern design. And so it does look like how colorful the decals are, having yellow, red, black, and white and gray. It's sort of like a retro color scheme for the decals applied to like a modern color scheme for the kit, if that makes sense. So I think the decals are also maybe a bit too colorful for the design overall. So anyway, it kind of makes it sound like I'm like picking out a lot of things that I don't like about the kit, but that's not the case. Just trying to give some like from my experience over the years, it's kind of things that I've learned, because I've certainly, I mean, if you went back and looked at some of my kits, anything that I'm talking about, like criticizing about this, is all stuff that I've done. So that's how I know that like I've done it before and realized maybe it doesn't quite exactly work too well like that. Like I put too many decals on there or whatever, like I'm talking about. I've done all of that. So just things that I've picked up from my experience that I would recommend to you. Just like kind of a bit less is more in terms of like the large markings. Try to keep the decals all pretty uniform in terms of like their coloring. You don't have to stick to like one color for all your decals, but just try to keep in mind the coloring of the decals, how that's going to work well with the coloring of the kit as a whole. Because you also have ones like this one right here, for example, this yellow decal on top of purple is just not really gonna, it's like barely visible and just not gonna look very good. And you kind of have a little bit of that here with the yellow up on the arm here. It's gonna be kind of hard to see, but we were talking about before, this one, yellow on white, also is not going to, I mean, in this case, I think it's not quite the right color for that spot. Also, okay. I mentioned the lens part in the rifle, but it looks like the kind of the lens part, which is like a sticker lens or something like that used for the mono-eye, also looks really nice. I just want to say, just because it catches the light really nicely. In particular, in this photo, I love how it caught the light there really nicely to give you this like glowing ring around the eye there. That looks really good. So yeah, it just looks like a kind of just circular sticker part. Anyway. So yeah, all right. So that's my thoughts on that. Like, I don't want to keep like dwelling on the decals a bit, but you kind of get what I'm saying, how these decal, like these striping bits here around the feet, and you also have a bit of this here on the waist. Like looking at the front of the waist, those white stripe bits kind of look fine. But then when you look around at the back, you can see that they don't exactly quite fit the design. And the same thing with the ones on the front of the foot there. They don't quite exactly fit. So that just also goes back to kind of just the general sentiment of like, if the decal doesn't quite fit for that placement, as much as you would love to have a little white stripe there, either just mask it and paint it, where you can make it an exact fit on there. But if you're using a decal that was not made for that kit, not made to fit that exact line and angle, it's not going to look quite right. So just kind of like, you just kind of have to make that choice, just go ahead and use the decal, and it's just not going to match quite right, or just sacrifice the idea of using of having like that stripe detail there. Or if you really, really want to have it, just mask it, I think would have been the best way to go for that. So anyway, thank you, Joel. All right, so last one then we're going to take a look at is another Zaku. Well, that one was not exactly a Zaku, but anyway. In a similar vein, this one is a Zaku II from Edgar. Going to be taking a look at here for the last one for today. This one is, not only is it a Zaku, it's the Zaku II F2, which is my favorite version of the Zaku II, as you guys know. So not only is this my favorite version of the Zaku II, but it's also featuring one of my favorite Xeon weapons too. The Rakuten Bazooka is a weapon that I particularly like. So I'm guessing that this is from the system weapon set, because I've got a bunch of these system weapon sets in the Rakuten Bazooka is one that you can get in one of those weapon sets. Yeah, we need a reissue of the MG, or what I would love would be a 2.0 of the MG. I've never built the 1.0 MG Zaku II F2, just because of the fact that it's older, and I would like to have a 2.0, but seeing as how we're probably not going to get a 2.0 of it, I should just build the 1.0 and just enjoy it for what it is. But this is the high grade, and the high grade is really, really nice. So, I mean, it'd be great to have a better master grade, but yeah, the high grade's fantastic. So anyway, what do we got going on here with this one? Aside from the bazooka, we've also got the added missile pods on the legs, which I've never been a big fan of on any version of the Zaku 2. Just never really been a huge fan of the leg missile pods myself. I don't know, maybe someday my feelings might change, but never been super into that weaponry for a Zaku. And the grenades on the side, those do come with the kit. And I think that's all, right, in terms of like what we've got going on for like weaponry. See, with this one, here's a really good example of what I'm talking about with the decals, because this is kind of a bit sort of like what I was talking about here. Like you have these decals, which are like these big red squares on here, and the decals on here are a bit mixed, because like those decals are like very much kind of like retro decals, like I was talking about with like my 80s Zaku Cannon kit here. But then like some of the other decals, like if you just looked at this kit like here, like from the waist down, this is much more of like kind of a modern style for decals, how you have all these like very fine, like sharp, crisp ones with like a lot of like this really small text. And they're all just white, just uniform white color. So this is more of like a modern, like simplistic, what's the, I don't know, yeah, modern is I guess kind of the best way to describe it, but minimalist kind of decal scheme, just in the fact that we have like not a lot, not a little, it's a kind of right down the middle in terms of the amount of decals. You have, on here on the leg, we can see there's 1, 2, 3 on like kind of this lower back portion of the lower leg. You got one here on the back of the thigh, a couple here on the skirt armor. So the number of decals is kind of average, but they're all uniform and white, which is pretty modern styling. But then in the top half, you do have a much more of a mix with this like red rectangle here. You've got the Xeon logo. So if we wanted to keep the entirety of the top half all in the same way as the bottom half, for example, the Xeon logo would also be white. We wouldn't have this red square on the hand. That's not like modern styling at all. The 02, like this oversized 02 is kind of like also not really very kind of like modern in the style of that as well. So so it's anyway a bit mixed. So just trying to explain kind of like what it would look like had it like all been uniform in like the decal styling. But anyway, that aside, if we are focusing on just like the top half and just how now, just to kind of mention how those retro decals match with the paint color was the other thing we talked about with the other build. This obviously being a fairly, I mean, it's like the old school Zaku coloring with just like the two-tone green. You have a little bit of that brown thrown in there too. And then actually the red accents do kind of also, it is a bit sort of like a real type color scheme kind of thing, having like some random colors thrown in there as well. Kind of interesting that this one also has the bright red accents. Both the Gunpla kits we're looking at both have bright red accents on a otherwise not like red color scheme at all. But so like the color scheme overall is a kind of fairly kind of retro color scheme. So the retro kind of color and multicolor decals work fine on this. I think in this case, what's going on with the decals of this is that it's a mix of that. Like you do have some of those retro style decals on there, and then you have some modern style decals on there. So I think going either one way or the other would have been a good way to go. Having a mix of the two just kind of makes it seem a bit inconsistent in terms of like the kind of what you were going for with the decal styling on this one. So I think kind of something to consider when doing decals. Sometimes I know like what it comes down to for a lot of people, they just kind of lay out their decals, and this is the challenge when you're doing custom decals compared to like if you bought like a set of decals for this particular kit, then like everything's there for you. You don't really have to think about it. But when you're doing custom decals, you know, you'll lay out all your decals, and this is why doing custom decals takes forever. It's such a long process because you really have to think about what decals do I have that work really well for this. And so usually kind of what I like to do is I'll do the big markings first. So like if I know, well, I'll want to decide on, I guess that's not first. What would be first would be deciding what decals I'm going to use for like most of the caution markings. So if I know like I'm going to use caution markings for like all the little decals, I'm going to use like for this build maybe ones that are orange and white. So like they're mostly white with like the little bits of orange in there, kind of like a haiku style decals, orange and white color. So I know that that's what I'm going to be using for like all the bulk of the decals. But before doing that, I want to put on my large decals first, because you also have to think of like the spacing. Larger ones obviously going to take up a lot of space. So say, for example, here on the shoulder, I know I want to put like a big Xeon logo here. It wouldn't be a good idea to go in and start putting on all my small caution markings, because then I might put a caution marking right here, and then I might realize, oh, now the big Xeon logo that I wanted to put here on the shoulder isn't going to fit because it's going to be too close to the small one. So figure out what you want to use for all your small markings, just so you know the style and the colors and what they're going to be. And then put on your large decals first, just so that you know you have enough space for where you want those to be. And you also know, so if I'm going to be using white and orange for the decal colors overall, and for all the caution markings, then if I wanted to, for like the big Xeon logo, if I have one from a different decal set where it's like white and blue, well, that's not really going to work, because the blue accent in that decal doesn't match with the orange that's going to be in all my other decals. So you can also think about how the color and the style of the large markings are going to fit with your small markings. Stick your large markings on there when you have enough space and you know kind of where those are going to go, and then go in and put the rest of all your smaller markings in there to kind of go along with that. It's kind of the process on how I go about like doing custom decals, but it takes a long time, because I think what happens, like in this case, kind of what it looks like is that maybe Edgar just kind of had his decal sheet there, a few different decal sheets, because I would imagine that all these small decals you can see are like all these small white ones are probably from one, it's probably like an HIQ decal set or something. And then like the 02 and like the rank markings and stuff, and possibly these ones here are also probably from some other different like Zaku decal set. But again, just kind of if it's from two different sets, those two sets may not like mesh very well stylistically once they're actually applied to the kit. So you kind of have to think about what you want to use and what you might not want to use. The red accents, I really like the red accent in here. That was a really cool idea, and I might steal that idea for a future build. And maybe not red, maybe like orange or something like that. And then the orange accent here in the thruster bells, and then you have orange on the grenades on the side. That all looks nice. This bit of red is a bit much for me. I think maybe I kind of maybe didn't really need that. The other little bits of red I think is kind of like enough in terms of like, you know, you want to have a little splashes of color to break up just like the black, brown, green, gray kind of color scheme of everything else. Again, it's kind of less is more, and sometimes when you're going for less is more, and like minus this part, and you think, oh, I got a little bit of orange here, I got a little bit of red in the armpit, I got a little bit of orange on thruster bells. Okay, but is that maybe too little? Okay, maybe I'll add just a little more, and then that little more kind of bumps it. Okay, now it's a little too much. So I think not having this bit in red probably would have been fine. It's not like too much, but I think just having the other little bits was kind of maybe enough for that. Also, I'm always a bit kind of nervous to do this myself, and it depends on the build whether I can say that I really like it so much or not. When the weapon is the same color as the armor, in this case, it's kind of interesting. I think it kind of works, and especially this is a very large weapon too. So I mean, like if you can imagine, like if we had just the Zaku machine gun or something, and part of the Zaku machine gun, and because it's not even like the whole weapon, it's maybe like 50% of the entirety of the weapon is in green, and it's like 50% gray. If you imagine if we had like just a Zaku machine gun and it was like 50% green, 50% gray, it'd be a much different kind of look overall. It would still carry over some of that same green from the armor, but it would visually. This one, just because a large weapon, 50% of that weapon is still a lot of green on the weapon. I think it looks okay, but yeah, it's something that I'm just trying to think, just like looking back over all my custom builds, I think I almost never will use the same color of armor on the weapon as well, just because I don't want the armor to look like, I don't want the weapon to look like it's armored in the same way as the mobile suit. I mean, again, just trying to think about it realistically, the armor is painted as armor for this mobile suit. The weapon, unless it's like a custom weapon that's like made for like an ace unit or something like that, then maybe you could see it being painted the same color. Most of the time, realistically, in a war, particularly because this is a grunt suit, they're not necessarily going to paint a weapon to match a particular unit. I mean, although this is like a grunt color scheme, so maybe there's multiple grunts that all carry this same bazooka, and so they're all kind of painted to match. So it kind of works, but something to think about when it comes to like choosing the color for your weaponry. I think usually in most cases, like kind of trying to think about it realistically, probably the weapon's not going to be painted in the same color as the armor, unless it's like a weapon that's specifically made for that mobile suit. But I don't know. Just kind of depends. Unless you want it to look like it is. If you want it to look like it's a weapon that's painted specifically for that mobile suit, then maybe. But I don't know. In this case, anyway, I think it works. But it is something that I would recommend you guys to consider. It's just like anything else. You have to consider if it really works for my build. Is this something that I really want? Kind of how do I want the kit to look? Also, just in terms of like just technically how it's painted, I haven't really mentioned about this, but you can also see it's pretty nicely pre-shaded as well. So I don't know if it was pre-shaded or highlighted. I don't know the exact manner of how it was painted, but you can see it has that nice pre-shaded look to the armor, which looks really nice. Although I would recommend you guys too, and this is maybe let me know your thoughts about this, what you guys think, if you would agree or not. But when it comes to this painting where you have the armor, where it has this really nice pre-shading, and one of the things that pre-shading does is it makes the armor look more kind of heavy and realistic. Then compared with like this gunmetal used, and because you can't, I mean, you can sort of technically pre-shade like your gunmetal accents, I guess, in a way. It would be kind of done in like a little bit different way, and it might rely more on like weathering afterwards. The light green doesn't look pre-shaded. It's definitely pre-shaded. I mean, as far as I can tell, definitely looks like it is. But the metallic parts just end up looking very flat in comparison, because the pre-shading on the armor is like gives it some nice depth and dimension, whereas the metallic, you kind of can't really get that same effect with this just like metallic gunmetal. Like having like these thruster bells in metallic, I think looks good. That works fine. But I think the The piping parts and like the joints would have looked better in just kind of like a dark, and just like a dark gray, something like what we have here on the bazooka, rather than gunmetal. I think would have matched the style of the painting, how the armor is painted. If you weren't doing pre-shading and you were just going for kind of like the build we saw just previously on the Efreet, just like a very super crispy, clean, kind of bright colors without the pre-shading on there, then I think the metallic would have fit better with that kind of painting style. But because basically pre-shading is what's doing for you, is kind of giving you like a really super subtle weathering, essentially, kind of, or just like shading to make it look more natural, more natural, realistic, and like I said, kind of heavy. But the gunmetal doesn't carry that same effect when used this much. Like I said, for small bits, like the thruster bells there on the back, small little accents, things like that, it's fine. It works well for that. But so fairly large sections, like the piping bits and like the knee joint and the elbow joints as well, just because of this particular Zaku design. These parts are those joints are quite large. So I think those might have looked better in just kind of a regular, just kind of dark gray, something. You can weather those gunmetal parts in a way to make them look kind of a bit more weathered and heavy, kind of. I think maybe might look good on this. Like actually, this entire kit right now, if it's not completed, let me just go back to his email. I don't know if it's like completed or not, but just a basic build, rescribed some panel lines and painted. The nose broke. The nose part broke, but I haven't gotten around to fixing. Did the nose part break? Oh, is that? I didn't really even notice that until you mentioned it. It looks like, yeah, it looks like that's maybe a bit kind of broken there. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's unfortunate. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like he's kind of like pulling a face, like doing one of these like kind of thing. But anyway, I mean, it's kind of basically done right now, I guess, but it's actually at a point where you could go and just weather this actually some more all over. And I think that actually might work really well. So I would maybe recommend, you might have been considering this done, but it's actually at like a perfect point right now that I think it could really benefit quite a lot from actually having some weathering on there. Giving this like a really nice, just kind of like all over gunk wash, I think would work really well to make the metallic parts look a bit more kind of blended in more so with the rest of the design, rather than now that it looks a bit disjointed with the armor and the metallic. They don't like blend super well, but like a kind of, just like overall gunk wash, I think would actually work quite well for this. So something to think about. I think that actually could work really quite well, especially because some of like the panel lining is not so you have like this line right here is quite dark and noticeable. Then like in like this detail here in the front of the leg, it's like either not panel lined at all, or it's like very faint. It's hard to notice. So like there's a bit of an inconsistency, it looks like. And I was noticing that on the backside as well. Where was that? Yeah, kind of here. I think this wasn't the photo I was looking at. But like here inside these like little square bits right there, it looks like there's not any panel line wash in there. But you can see like there's a black line kind of going down in between, but then not like inside these square bits. So then like you can see like right here, obviously the panel lining is quite noticeable on that part right there. So just going over the whole thing with the gunk wash, I think would just actually look really, really good, probably. So I would recommend it. But otherwise, I mean, I like the adjustments, like the small changes to the color scheme overall, adding the brown in there, making the black, like the just changes to the Zaku II F2's like color scheme overall, I think are nice, creative, and just the pre-shading, the painting looks smooth. I mean, it all looks good. So other than just the kind of few things that I mentioned, I think honestly, adding some weathering on it now at this point would really look quite nice. So something to think about. Okay. Anyway, guys, that's just about going to do it for today. We saw some pretty interesting stuff. What did you guys think? Let me know. I know those of you guys who are watching right now live, you can type in the live chat. But if you're watching this later, leave some comments and let us know your thoughts, suggestions, recommendations for the builds that we looked at here today. But yeah, I'm going to go work on some other stuff. Try to get this guy figured out. But yeah, I think it's kind of really done all that I can do at the moment, other than just trying to figure out if it just needs some more powerful car inside there, basically. So that's gonna do it for me for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. What is the model kit in the thumbnail? Hector, that model kit, it's the new HGG Quacks kit. So yeah, I don't have that yet. Still hoping that I'll get my hands on it one of these days too, I hope. But anyway, yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Next week, what we got going on? Yeah, there'll be a new Plamono Trend episode. I think next Friday, Ryan and I will be live for Plamono Trend. Oh, actually, I'm hoping to do a live stream of some live painting next week. So I don't know exactly what day that'll be. Maybe Tuesday, possibly. So look forward to that. But anyway, yeah, have a great weekend, guys, and I'll see y'all next week for something or other. If not a live build, then some live painting or